All right, we are live for the Beta Boys Weekly Fantasy broadcast here, joined with two pretty solid fantasy football members perennially here. Wally off to a bit of a tough start this season. Derek, the Supreme Chancellor, you're in first place at this point in the season. You missed the playoffs last year. What's been the key to success changing it up for you this year? Did you have a different strategy going into the draft or just dumb luck?
Probably more of the luck factor going on there. I did the running back strategy in the draft, which I almost never do. My other leagues, I did receiver strategy first 4 rounds, and I'm doing really well in those too. So maybe I was just more locked in this year.
Well, you ended up with 2 pretty darn good running backs there with Derrick Henry and Aaron Jones. You were pretty big on Henry and thought the rest of us were kind of overselling the 0.4 PPR sort of a deal. Henry hasn't exactly taken off yet, but if he does, you could be really solid there down the road. Obviously, Aaron Jones got quite a bit more utilization this week. And then the big story for you was Amon-Ra, St. Brown, and Jalen Waddle just absolutely destroying.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Those are a few different points I have on my notepad here. I want to talk about Derrick Henry a little bit, but first I'll talk about Jalen Waddle. Like, he's actually my third receiver in a different league, and he's my number 1 in this league, and he's definitely worthy of a number 1. I don't know if you guys remember last year, but he's pretty explosive, and I think he's already this year both weeks, had huge, 30, 40 plus yard touchdowns. He's a big play guy, and he's going to be heavily targeted. And now that Tyreek Hill's there as a big threat, he might sneak free on some deep single coverage routes, stuff like that. So I'm liking that. Third wide receiver could have some inconsistencies. I like Amon-Ra as he's going to get a lot of targets in Detroit. So not too worried about him. But that third spot could be trouble at times.
I was a little bit nervous about Jalen Waddle, considering that he had Tua as his quarterback. I thought, they were going to have to force feed Tyreek Hill. But Tua didn't have any problem feeding both of them this past week. He had an absolutely insane fantasy output, and quad tight end tripod had him on his bench, and it didn't matter because he also had Lamar Jackson. So quite a week for tripod. You picked a good week, maybe, Wally, to have just a absolutely abysmal time of things. Were you going against tripod? Is that right? Or you got him coming up this coming week?
No, Q's coming up. Tripod just destroyed someone.
I was thinking you played him this week, but okay.
Unfortunately, Kirk put up a very okay score, but enough to beat like 4 teams, but tripod just destroyed him.
I want to talk about the Griff rules real quick here, Kamish.
Okay.
So
Sure.
These are the Griff rules that are noted in the league manager's note on the front of our league page here. 1, you cannot cheat, which is determined at the commissioner's discretion. A little typo there, but I think I get the gist of it. 2, you cannot have a non-IR person in an IR slot on game day. That was something I pushed, but I wasn't even like the main culprit of that. That was like Jim and Ben J. 3, you cannot have an incomplete or invalid lineup. Doing so will result in 0 team points for the week. I'm interested to see that challenged and see what that might look like. Like, would me playing Julio Jones like I did in the Lax League this week accidentally count as a 0?
That would not count, no.
Okay.
Because that was a game time, or that was a game day ruling about. We didn't know he was out until, a couple hours before kickoff.
And then what I really wanted to ask you about is number 4 on here is just blank. Is that, giving yourself as much leeway as possible?
Pretty much, yeah.
It seems like I'm going to have a tough way wriggling out of any commissioner decisions moving forward.
Yeah, number 4,
verbiage.
There's already a number 4, like no texting the commissioner and asking him to make transactions for you.
Oh, I do that all the time in like the most polite language ever always.
Yeah, I forgot about that, so I don't think I ever responded or did anything about that when you asked last week.
Yeah, I had Kittle and Butker potentially out. Actually, they were both out, and I was trying to get an extra roster spot out of it, but the commission put the kibosh on that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fair. 1 IR.
I think we
Stay
need
healthy.
some COVID spots. It's pretty unkind of you to not be, considerate of those who could be dying because of COVID at this point.
That is one point of view.
Can you say COVID on a YouTube live stream, or do they just immediately come knocking
It's
on your door here?
Well, they might not knock on your door, but I bet there'll be a banner when you post that says, for more COVID-19 information, click this link, now that you brought it up.
Yeah, that makes sense there. Wally, what was sort of the reason for your stumblings this week, you think? What was the issue there?
Injuries for starters. Keenan Allen, Gabe Davis out is an issue. So that means I'm starting Valdez Scantling and Kenyon Drake. That's just fucking gross. And by Thursday we knew I was not winning, just because of Mahomes and Kelsey having very pedestrian weeks, which can happen. The other thing, I will get to that in my Chads and Schmitty's segment as well. But Frank Reich is a fucking whatever the worst pill is that Larson has. Like, that dude sucks. Also Matt Ryan, he's got some problems too. So the Colts got issues, and I'm being punished because Taylor had 6.5 points or something like that.
Yikes.
And he's probably, I know you love Saquon and his 3 points this week or whatever, but Taylor's the best running back in the league unless Henry's healthy.
No run CMC.
Saquon.
See, I would have said preseason Christian McCaffrey, and I guess I'm not going to hop off the bandwagon there. And I mean more from a fantasy standpoint. Yeah, I gave a lot of praise to Jonathan Taylor and Saquon Barkley last week, and then they both just bombed here this week, so I got a little egg on my face that way. McCaffrey did bounce back a little bit. That was interesting to see. It looks like the Panthers are just bad, and Baker's bad. I mean, I guess he had a limited amount of time in camp, and that certainly doesn't help when you're joining a new squad there. But they start off 0-2. I thought they would beat the Browns for sure week 1 with the chip Baker had on his shoulder. But they actually got McCaffrey involved, kind of like the Packers actually got Aaron Jones involved this week. And that paid off in both fantasy and a win for the Packers, not so fortunate for the Panthers there. Anything else stand out to you guys in particular, just from overall takeaways this week?
Yeah, the Colts are very, very, very bad.
Yes.
Embarrassingly bad. And I know Pittman was out, but that shouldn't be enough to just make you lose to the Jags 24-0.
How did they have
24-0.
Pittman? How did they
bad.
have Pittman out and Paris Campbell didn't even get a target? I don't think.
I know.
He was supposed to be their number 2. That was absurd.
So I saw Kirk. It might have been a different league, honestly. Kirk dropped Trevor Lawrence and started Paris Campbell, and I did the same thing in another league because I had Pittman, and that dude just sucks. He was in the same teams as Scary Terry and was potentially better at Ohio State.
He looked so good at Ohio
That's just
State.
not the case. That's just not the case. He's just bad. At this point, he's just bad.
He's had some injuries that really derailed him and so forth. And he played 2 or 3 games in his first 3 years in the league. But, oh, man, I thought he was explosive at Ohio State. They didn't even give him a shot. And it wasn't just Pittman was out. Alec Pierce, the rookie that was in the mix, was out too. So I saw Ben played. I didn't even remember the guy's name. The next guy after Campbell, and he scored a few points for Ben there this week. But rough day for Paris Campbell for sure.
Ashton Doolin.
That's exactly who I'm talking about.
No idea who that is.
Yeah. So we'll never hear from him again once Pearson and Pittman are back. But wow. Yep. Anybody you guys want to Dunchain right off the bat here?
I do not want to Dunchain anyone else because I just scored 61 points, and I don't think I'm Dunchainable. So I don't think anyone else should be Dunchained.
Well, you did say that
quickly.
You were pretty eager and close to Dunchaining Ben last week. He bounced back in sort of a way here. He had 120 points, but he ran into a buzzsaw commissioner. but you're not willing to pull the trigger on unchaining him.
No, give him one more week until Dobbins comes back.
40 points from Stephon Diggs was pretty handy for him.
But I'm not surprised if Diggs does that every week. They throw it to him half the plays they run. Like the
Gabriel
play
Davis
design is
out
for
this
Diggs.
week, right? So that probably increased his targets.
Last year too, last year I think he was over his reception prop 12 out of 17 games or something, maybe even more. He's getting 10 plus catches a game.
Yep. And for Ben's team, you could do the exact prop the opposite way for CeeDee Lamb and probably have won a bunch of money betting unders because something's fucking wrong with CeeDee Lamb. Even with Dak, stuff was not happening last year, and it's also not happening with the backup. He scored 10, and it was all in 2 plays, which unfortunately were not 70-yard touchdowns like Tyreek going from 8 to 30 something. CeeDee Lamb might have some problems going forward too.
I think he's going to be fine, but he's not going to be what we thought he could, right? The potential there with him, Ben going Diggs, CeeDee Lamb, he's thinking he could have 2 top 5 receivers there, I'm sure, is what he had in mind. But yeah, that hasn't quite come to fruition so far.
Yeah.
So who has been done changed so far? Just Kellen?
Just Kellen. And student loans.
Right.
I mean,
right.
Which they aren't done chaining. They're coming back. I'm not looking forward to January.
We're close to done chaining Ben. He had a peak week. His team's not going to score any better than this.
How'd you feel about my receiving core this week? We had Mike Williams and Rashad Bateman and T. Higgins go off. We had Devonte Adams go from a 47% target share last week to an 18% target share this week in Oakland. He didn't have below a 20% target share in the last 2 years with Green Bay. What did you guys think was up with Devonte? Did you watch any of that game?
Yeah, hated that game. Absolutely disgusting.
Kyler was insane down the stretch, though.
I'm so anti-Kyler. It was painful to watch that. And obviously I had Raiders 5.5 on the pick'em thing, so that's just disgusting to watch that.
There was really bad offensive holding on the 4th down play that Kyler scored on to win the game. He ran right by the hold, and that's how he got in the end zone. But that's what sports are, pretty much.
A lot of if you're cool enough to be in the top 7 or top 8 group chat, you would have known that Derek was not a fan of a lot of refs this week. Possibly even the whole group chat too.
Well, he never is. He's pretty anti-ref guy.
I know.
Derek, did you ever hear back when you called the refs after the Kelvin Johnson controversy?
I think we definitely got a live person on the phone at one point. We left a message, but yeah, we got through. It was just a frontline person probably, but
we got through. We'll pass comments to marketing or whatever,
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome, actually, that you got that far even. What's up with your brother thus far, Derek?
He has the most points against. He's not had a lot of luck so far, 2 weeks in. He has allowed 275.28 points through 2 weeks, which is 0.3 less than what I've scored through 2 weeks. So I think he'll be okay.
Does he have the wherewithal to be managing his way through an 0-2 start? We unchained him a couple of years ago for the dad thing,
right.
Unironically, that was just sincere, and it's borne some fruit for me. I guess we're not making any money on this, but just made me feel good about my prediction capabilities. And now, I don't see any reason to change that.
But now half or maybe over half of the league are dads, so I don't know how that's.
It levels the playing field. That's true.
Yeah. But no, so I have a ton of topics to touch on from last week, but that is something I wanted to bring up the current live episode, since I missed last week, and that is Kirk, you guys were talking about what quarterback he was going to do when Dak got hurt, and, like because he didn't have a backup. No one brought up Carson Wentz. No one would have ever thought he was going to pick up and start Carson Wentz. So
Correct.
he's still got something there in his research abilities. And
Well, I think what he saw is Carson Wentz scored the most points of the available free agent quarterbacks in week 1. I think he just did most points last
that's what you
week.
think-
Pick the
that's
top
what you
guy.
think he did?
Yes.
That's what he did. Okay. I'm
He
sure
didn't have
that's what he
time.
did.
He's busy parenting 2 children.
Okay.
No, I mean, that was a little shocker. Wentz is not a Kirk type of guy. Kirk type of guys
Right.
are like the exact opposite of what his team looks like this year.
Right.
Surprisingly, they're usually like very safe, and Carson Wentz is the exact opposite. So next week he plays the Eagles. Will Kirk keep him? Because he's either going to score 40 or -6 next week. There's no in between against
Right.
the Eagles.
Also, you got to factor in for Kirk that Michael Pittman out, Elijah Mitchell out. Like that, he's got a different team with both those guys in there. So that's kind of too bad
Yep.
for him. His receiving
Yeah.
core could be pretty rough this year, though.
That's what I've been looking at.
Yeah, when DeAndre Hopkins comes
yeah.
back, it looks like Marquise Brown is just meh.
He's gross.
The Steelers don't have enough passing potential to like field a competent receiver. It doesn't look like. I mean, I'm sure Deontay will have some fine weeks. And then Robbie Henderson in the 3rd spot is like kind of laughable.
No, I mean, I agree. Deontay is a very safe, 3, but no one drafted him as a 3. He got 9 targets, but they're all, 6 for 68 is just meh. That's a 3. And then, every 3rd week he scores and you get, 15 out of him. That's exactly what a wide receiver 3 is. And he drafted him as a 2, so he's in trouble, and he probably knows it, and he's looking for solutions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just realistic.
I think I know who's gonna pick up and start a quarterback this week, but I'll keep that to myself for now. And
You're withholding that, playing it close to the vest, huh?
well, I don't want to give him advice and stuff, which was a point from last week. I guess 2 points. Schmitty can't be doing that giving advice thing anymore. He was saying it was blatantly obvious that Parker needs to be playing James Robinson every week. And then he started James Robinson this week. I don't know if Parker would have done that without Schmitty saying that on the podcast. So maybe no free tips.
Yeah, Parker would have only gotten 2nd best in the league if he switched
Well,
that for Lockett. So
And then here's the other point that I really was number 1 on my sheet was the misinformation that was spread on last week's episode when I was not present. Schmitty said that I should be kissing his feet, which is now a little ironic, for saying that to tell me to start Jerry Jeudy instead of Chris Godwin in week 1 when I had Jerry Jeudy in my starting lineup the entire week. And I thought most people would probably start Godwin there. And I asked him about it, and he had just said what he said, and I just kept Jeudy in, which most weeks is probably going to be the incorrect decision, but it worked out in week 1 for me.
yeah, I mean, I don't hate it. Godwin's coming off of about a 9-month or 10-month recovery. So yeah, you probably are starting Jeudy there week 1.
You guys also mentioned Dak getting hurt and that Kirk got screwed about Dak getting hurt, and that's
Well, just
why
a
he
brief aside here. There's baseball-sized hail hitting my house right now. There are just these
What is
huge
going on?
chunks of ice raining. You might even hear it come through the mic here. It is insane.
Yeah, had that before we started, but it wasn't baseballs. It was probably nickels or quarters.
I would say
It's
a
stronger as it gets to
legitimate
Hudson.
baseball-sized